Here's how I rank all 46 2023 movies I've seen from worst to best. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the Movie Ranker, and today I'm finally getting out my 2023 ranking. 46 movies here. The quality is pretty much on par with 2022 in my opinion. We got some great stuff here, some crap, and a lot of stuff in the middle. I'm not going to waste too much time because this is probably going to be a long video. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quick because I don't want to be here all day. So without wasting any more time, let's dive in. So kicking things off at number 46, the worst movie I've seen in 2023 is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. No contest here. I wasn't expecting a whole lot going into this movie, and good thing because I didn't get a whole lot. To me, this is just stupid. I mean, if they would have at least tried to make it look like Winnie the Pooh or whatever, and not just a guy wearing a Winnie the Pooh mask. And even as a slasher, it's not even that great. So I thought this movie was pretty much garbage. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's definitely the worst I've seen in 2023. Up next at number 45, I'm going with Barbie. And a lot of people love this movie, and that's fine. To me, it just didn't work. For one thing, the tone just seemed to be all over the place. A big majority of this movie feels like it's targeted towards 30-year-old women, which is kind of weird for a Barbie movie. But then other times, it's just so incredibly childish. I'm like, now it seems like it's for little kids, and it just seems like it's all over the place. Its message is very heavy-handed. They kind of beat you over the head with their feminist style message. It's just not a movie for a guy like me. Of course, it wasn't made for me, but yeah, I didn't enjoy it all that much. Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie do an okay job, and the set designs look real nice. The amount of pink in that they use, really incredible. But the movie itself, I did not care for it. Up next at number 44, I'm going with Expendables 4, or Expendables. Freaking dumbass title. But yeah, definitely the worst of this franchise. The action was so mediocre. The story was kind of dumb, and it had stupid twists and reveals that were eye-rolling to me. I did not enjoy it at all. It lacks Stallone. He's only in this for a little bit. Jason Statham tries to save the movie. He definitely is the best part of this film, but even his moments, the script is really weak, so he can't do a whole lot. It's really dumb to include Megan Fox and 50 Cent. They're not action stars, so it doesn't seem right to have them in this film. And 50 Cent, if that would have been any other person playing his character, it would have been the most forgettable character ever. He's only rememberable for being 50 Cent, and yeah, this is a pretty bad action flick. Yeah, not good. At number 43, I'm going with the movie 65. Now, this was probably one of the biggest disappointments for me because going into this, I watched the trailer and it looked awesome. It looked like the Jurassic Park movie I've been waiting for years. But we didn't quite get that. They pretty much show you the best parts in the trailer. There's not a whole lot of action in here. Adam Driver does a decent job, but this is such a forgettable film, man. It's one you'll watch once and you'll never think about again, unfortunately. Up next at number 42, I'm going with Skinamarink. A lot of people hate this movie. I respect it. I'm not a big fan of it, but I kind of respect it more than I like it. Of course, it has terrible pacing issues. The movie feels an hour too long. Doesn't have the best cinematography. A lot of times it's just staring at like corners of rooms and stuff for a very long time. But when it does try to get you with its scares and its tension, I feel like it works there. But those moments are far and few between. And I do like the idea that how there's like no doors in this house and the windows go missing and there's this monster that's like killing off the two kids. I feel like that's a good representation of how a childhood could be if you have an abusive father or mother or whatever that case may be. Your home's not going to feel like a home. It's going to feel like a foreign place. It's not going to feel safe. So I get all that. That's why I kind of respect this film more than I like it. It could have used some tightening up though. Coming in at number 41, I gotta go with Joyride. Now this is one I was really disappointed in because I heard so many great things. People were saying funniest movie of the year, hands down. and all this stuff. And I went in, I never really laughed once. I thought it was way too long. I kept looking at the time, waiting for the movie to finish. It just wasn't for me, guys. It's like it tries to be edgy and raunchy and that, but like I said, the jokes just don't land, or they're way too predictable. You can see it coming a mile away. Like for instance, the main lead doesn't really drink, and she's kind of forced to drink to show respect to these businessmen, and of course she gets sick and pukes on them. It's like you see it coming. But yeah, I just wasn't a fan of this movie. It just didn't make me laugh, and that's unfortunate for a comedy. Reaching number 40. Now, this is where the movies are starting to get better. I would start to give them 3 stars at this point. So, coming in at number 40, I'm going with Cocaine Bear. A movie that is okay. It doesn't take itself too seriously, obviously, being a movie about a bear on cocaine. But at the same time, I felt like it could have been better. Like, they could have upped the craziness just a tiny bit. But they do kind of give you what they promise. So I can't fault the movie for that. I did find it funny that the bear forms a coke habit and how his cubs are like covered in coconut when they're in the cave. That was pretty funny. And there's a pretty cool little ending on here, but overall, a kind of a mediocre film, especially for a film that's supposed to be super fun, you know? At number 39, I got Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Shazam 2, I think that was what the title was. But yeah, just a very mediocre superhero film. It lacks the magic of the first Shazam. I think it's because the kids are starting to grow up now, so it doesn't feel as genuine as before when you got these kids becoming superheroes, becoming adults and that. And you know, kids want to be adults until they become adults. Then they realize it's better to be kids. But in this film, you kind of lose all that. Our villain's kind of generic, even though I love Lucy Liu. This is a very mediocre superhero film. Doesn't really offer anything new. It's an okay one-time watch, but I can't see me revisiting this. At number 38, we're going with Strays. Now, this is another movie that I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. I knew it was going to be incredibly raunchy and like R-rated and crazy, but literally, they threw every single dog joke or comparison they could find into this movie. So not everything works. There are some moments that are incredibly funny and had me laughing, and other ones I was just like, this is just so stupid. And that's what happens when you throw everything into the pot. But it was an okay film. It's like a live action South Park if the characters were all dogs, basically. A lot of sex jokes, a lot of humping jokes and stuff like that, and swearing just to be funny. So like I said, not everything landed, but it was an okay watch. At number 37, I got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Another movie that didn't quite live up to the MCU expectations, and those expectations has really gone down the drain over the years. Yeah, this kicked off Phase 5 with a fizzle, not a bang. It's an okay movie, but it tries to be so big and grand, it really fails at capturing the epicness it was going for. Kang, he's a good villain. I don't think he's an amazing villain or anything like some people say. Everybody says he's like the best part of this movie. That may be true, but it's still not that great in my opinion, even though Jonathan Majors does give a pretty good performance. I just feel like the tone's all over the place. We got what's that guy's name, MODOK. He is just dumb, like really stupid. I can't believe they thought it was a good idea to include him in this film. Yes, I get he's a character in Marvel, but they try to be super serious with certain subject matters, and then every time he shows up, it just throws off the tone. It just becomes a big joke with his butt hanging out and everything. And yeah, just wasn't a big fan of that. Another very mediocre superhero film. Number 36, I'm going with Insidious: The Red Door. Patrick Wilson, his first time directing, he does a great job in the directing chair. I'll give him that. As for the movie, we don't get a whole lot new for the latest entry in this Insidious franchise. It takes about an hour to get going because our characters kind of have amnesia. They don't remember the past or what was going on with these demons and all that. But we already know because we've seen the other movies. So we're sitting there waiting for them to figure out what's going on for about an hour. And then we get like 25 minutes or a half hour of new stuff to wrap things up. And I'm not the biggest fan of the way they did wrap up this story. It's not a bad movie. I still enjoyed watching it, but I just feel like it feels kind of pointless in the franchise. At number 35, I gotta go with Fast X. Now, I always have a fun time watching these films. It's cool to see the gang back together, especially on 11 entries at this point, or yeah, something like that. And it's just that this is a part of a trilogy. Like X, 11, and 12, I think are all supposed to be together. So the way this ends is not very satisfying at all. They bring back people who died multiple times in this franchise, and this movie does it again. And I'm like, don't be scared to kill off characters, because at this point, I don't trust you when a character dies. I know they're going to come back because it happens so many times. They're too safe at this point. But yeah, this was kind of a fun movie. It has some dumb moments in it, like that bomb rolling around the city for like an hour. So stupid. I think Jason Momoa really saves the movie for me. He plays a great villain. He's kind of wacky and kooky. Like there's a scene where he's like at a table with two dead soldiers or cops or whatever beside him, and he's like, I don't know. He's just really weird and demented, and I really enjoyed his character. Everything else was kind of meh, but that's kind of what you expect from Fast and Furious nowadays. Not the worst in the franchise, but there's definitely better in there. A decent popcorn flick, but you gotta really turn your brain off, especially for that scene where he's driving down the dam. You're like, oh, so ridiculous. At number 34, I got Knock at the Cabin. Now, this film was pretty good in a way, but it feels like it's a one-time watch. It's an M. Night Shyamalan film without the M. Night Shyamalan twist. It's way too straightforward. You're expecting something crazy to happen in the end or things to shift, but it doesn't. It plays it fairly safe. And I feel like that makes this only good for a one-time watch, because I feel like it doesn't have the value for a rewatch, you know? The actors do a great job. You got Dave Bautista and a more centered role here and a more serious role, which is cool to see. They all do a fairly good job. It just doesn't really feel like a movie I really want to revisit ever. At number 33, I got Creed 3. Now, one of the worst Rocky franchise Creed movies, but still decent enough. I still give it a pass. It does go a little too far with its style instead of its, real story like the Rocky movies have and heart. Kind of lacks that, but it goes more for the style, which I don't like. There's this end fight that, the audience leaves and it's all smoke and everything. I'm just like, this is just so dumb. But I really do like Jonathan Majors in this movie. I think he did a better job in here than what he did in Ant-Man, where he was getting all the praise. It was just interesting to see a fighter like him that fights more dirty, throws an elbow every once in a while in that. Something new to the franchise. And his connection with Adonis was pretty cool too, with their childhood. I just feel like they dealt on that childhood thing way too long in this movie. It's like, get over it. We know what's going on at this point, but a decent movie, just one of the weaker entries in the franchise for sure. Coming in at number 32, I got The Boogeyman. Now, this is based off a short story by Stephen King, and it was a pretty good little horror movie. The tension was there when it needed to be. The creature design was pretty cool and unique, something we never really seen before. And I enjoyed these characters. Interesting how the creature could manipulate voices and stuff to try to draw you in. And of course, he uses the closet and he hides in the darkness and kind of feeds off your fears. So all that was kind of great. Especially if you were dealing with grief or sadness or something of that matter, it was easier to get to you. And yeah, I think they did all the characters and the actors did a good job with the performance wise. The story was intriguing enough. A decent little horror movie. I like the creature design. I like the way the light is what affected it and everything. It kind of was a different twist on the classic boogeyman tale. Up next at number 31, I'm going with the slasher movie Sick. Now, this one was written by Kevin Williamson, known for writing Scream. So I was really intrigued to watch this one. And it's decent. Not as good as the Scream films, in my opinion, but it really used the pandemic to its advantage. The movie kind of uses that to tell its story. It takes place in 2020 when the pandemic's at an all-time high and everybody's wearing masks and stuff. So these two friends go to a cabin in isolation to try to get away from everybody. And they start getting stalked by this killer that's going around. You're trying to figure out who is it. There's a mystery behind it all. And there's a pretty decent twist at the end. I just feel like the kills could have been a little bit better. This is a slasher movie. But yeah, it was decent enough, I guess. But since I watched this like almost a year ago, I think it was in January or February when I watched this, I have to admit I don't remember a whole lot, but I do remember enjoying it enough. Reaching our top 30, I'm going with Oppenheimer. Now, I know this makes a lot of people's top 10 lists, and that's fine. I do not think this is a bad movie at all. It's just not my type of movie. It's just not really my thing. That's why I have it lower in my list. The performances were perfect. The directing was great by Christopher Nolan. He's one of my favorite directors. It's just, at 3 hours long, I found it was a little long for this type of story, dealing with a historical event. And I really liked, though, that it tapped into the personal side of Oppenheimer and how him being involved with the atomic bomb, how he struggled with that and his personal beliefs and stuff and his theories. All that was in here. That was all great. It's just, I'm not a huge history buff or anything, and I'm not super interested in the atomic bomb itself. So it was a good one-time watch for me, but I definitely will never return to it again. I respect it more than I love it. I think it's great if you do love this movie, more power to you, but it just wasn't my thing, I guess. At number 29, I'm going with The Flash. Now, this is a very polarizing movie. It's either people think it's the worst thing ever made or one of the best movies of the year. Me, I'm really in the middle. Unfortunately, I really do not like Ezra Miller, so that does not help when I'm watching this film. Every time I see his face, I'm like, it just makes me angry. I don't know why. I just really don't like that guy. It's more of a personal thing. But I try to set that aside for this movie, and the movie is okay. I think it works best because we get Michael Keaton as Batman in here. It's just so cool to see him return, after so many years, and he still has it. He was definitely the selling point for this film, but also like how we got Ben Affleck as Batman. We got different versions of Batman in here, and obviously dealing with kind of like multiverse stuff. And I just wish the time travel aspects were a little stronger because I'm a huge time travel fan. So I was really, that's what I was really waiting for when I was going into this movie. And we do get some of it, but not a whole lot. I do find the ending pretty cool, though, when they're trying to battle General Zog and they have to keep retrying. That was pretty cool. A decent enough film. It's just, like I said, I can't really stand Ezra Miller. And I think the movie still could have been much better than what it was. It really uses nostalgia to try to hook you in with, Michael Keaton Batman and stuff. I did get a chuckle out of the ending, the Batman we get at the very end. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was just an okay movie. But I do want to add, it did have god-awful CGI, like PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2, I'll give it that type of graphics. But that's not good for a 2023 movie that was like $200 million. So that's just crazy to me. At number 28, I'm going with Blackberry. We had a lot of movies this year based on like biopics or like on products, the history of these products and that. And this is another one based off the BlackBerry cell phones, which came out in Canada here. They were a pretty big deal when they came out, and this movie kind of shows you that, but it really shows you its decline too, and how the company basically failed near the end due to one of the owners being really greedy. And yeah, it was an interesting movie. I think the first half is really strong, and it's really cool to see all the 90s things. That's when I grew up, with the dial-up computers and then playing Doom and that. That was really cool to see. But as the movie goes on in the second half, it kind of loses footing, and I kind of lose my interest a bit. It's not as tight near the end. But overall, a pretty decent movie about a smartphone. I mean, how much more interesting can you get, right? You got Glenn Howerton in here, which is an all-time favorite of mine from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He plays Dennis. So it was really cool to see him in a more serious role in here. And of course, Jay Baruchel is always fun to watch. So a good enough movie, I suppose, for a smartphone. At number 27, I'm going with The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Now, for a frame of reference, this movie is based off one chapter in Bram Stoker's Dracula novel, so which isn't very long at all, and they literally stretched that out to a movie, and I feel like you can feel that when you're watching this movie. It needed a bit more meat on the bones, in my opinion. I do like that Dracula is pretty vicious in this one. He is not the charming, like, lover like in some of the other versions of this film. No, he's more like a creature in here. And I do like that. It's just that he doesn't really have a weakness. He's lacking that kryptonite in this film. Like, he's basically unstoppable. I'm a huge fan of any movie that takes place on the open sea or on ships. So that was really cool to see. I love that aspect of it. A pretty good movie in my opinion. Got great acting. It's just the way it ends. It's kind of setting up the next movie taking place, in a city this time, and I'm like, ooh, that seems way more interesting. And I just don't know if we'll ever get that movie, unfortunately. So it's kind of bittersweet ending. But yeah, I had a decent enough time with this film, like 3.5 stars at this point in my ranking list. At number 26, I got No One Will Save You. Pretty interesting sci-fi horror film about an alien invasion, but this time we follow basically just like one character, so it feels much more personal. Of course, there's other people in the movie, but she's basically our only main lead that we follow, right? There's not really a whole lot of side characters or anything. And this character is pretty interesting because she has a tragic past that we don't really know about, but we know something happened. And they slowly build on that mystery throughout. And we find out what actually happened and why, the cops and different people in the town don't really like her or trust her. So she really kind of has to take on this alien apocalypse on her own, and that's real interesting. And the ending I was kind of mixed on. It's almost like a Twilight Zone type ending, but as I sat and thought about it, I kind of enjoyed it more and more. So yeah, a pretty decent alien flick, kind of reminiscent of Signs at times, but just not quite as good. But still definitely worth a watch. At number 25, I'm going with Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, this one kind of surprised me. I figured it would be way lower on my list, giving different reviews that I watched by this, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. I have zero connection to the video games, though, so I wasn't there being like, that's not what the games did or whatever. No, because I have no connection. And I thought this was actually better than Willy's Wonderland. A lot of people say that was better, but this one I thought had a better story. It did lack in the kills department because it's only PG-13, but everything else, I like the mystery behind it. Like, what is going on? Why are these animatronics doing what they're doing? And I thought the main lead and his daughter were real good. I really enjoyed watching them and the cop that became his friend. And just how everything played out, and seeing Matthew Lillard back in horror movies is awesome as well. He got his, not his big break, but everybody remembers him as Stu from Scream, right? So it's really cool to see him back here. And yeah, a better movie than what I thought it was going to be, based on these animatronics killing people. It was pretty damn good. Up next, at number 24, I'm going with Megan. There's always that big debate. Which is better, Megan or Child's Play 2019? Because they're both based off of AI going rogue, right? These toys that use AI. And I prefer Child's Play 2019 just because that movie was rated R. I felt like the story was a bit more fun and the kills were really brutal. But this was still a decent film. Unfortunately, it is PG-13, so the kills are a bit lackluster. But Megan did become pretty iconic overnight, because of her crazy dance she does and everything. I think the characters were decent. It's just that, like, the way they made Megan in this lab with like 3 or 4 people, it's like, no way. It would take like thousands of people to make an AI this advanced, in my opinion. So that was a little bit stupid, but the movie itself I thought was pretty good. Megan definitely got my interest. I would like to see a sequel to this, especially if they would make it rated R, because that's kind of what it was missing. And I just feel like they could have done a bit better job in here. Like, I would have liked to see a crazy town massacre. There's a point where Megan like heads on back home, and I would have liked to see a massacre all the way home, but we don't really get that. She just kind of zooms back home, and it kind of reaches the final moments of the movie. But like I said, I enjoyed it enough. I just prefer Child's Play 2019 for this type of movie. Up next, at number 23, I got Scream 6. Now, I'm a huge Scream fan, but this one I do have problems with. It is my least favorite Scream movie, but they do get a few things right. I really like the opening, how they change things up a bit. Not your standard opening for Scream, especially with the killer being revealed and then there'd be another twist on that. Love that whole intro. I like that it takes place in New York. We got some great set designs and that in here. Of course, it was really filmed in Montreal, but you can't really tell watching this film. So that's great. I enjoyed the core 4 and all the characters they bring back. It's just, there's way too much plot armor. Like, some people get stabbed like 60 times in this movie and they survive. It's just like nobody dies. And it really bugs the hell out of me. I really like the end. The killer reveal was pretty cool. There's some dumb moments with like people running after people with a knife, and when that person has a gun, it's like, what are you doing? Are you stupid? But yeah, it's just the movie is just way too afraid to kill off characters, and it's like there's multiple characters in this movie that should have died and they don't. So that really bugs me, and this movie is like the only one in the franchise that really has that problem for me. But it was still a fun time. You still get that meta humor and all the horror connections that you love in this franchise. So it's still a good enough time. Up next at number 22, I got the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Now, this is a very well made children's film, but I'm not a kid, so obviously it doesn't go as high on my list as some. Maybe if this would have came out in the late 90s, when everybody was into Mario 64 and everything, I think that this would probably be one of my favorite movies of all time. But it just didn't hit that hard because it's very well made. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The animation is really well done. And the story is decent, but it is very thin, very straightforward. But like I said, this is a kids' movie, so that makes sense. I'm not faulting it for that. But yeah, it could have been better, in my opinion, in the story department. But everything else is pretty top notch, especially Jack Black playing Bowser. Who would have thought that? Like, he is so good at that role. And all the rest of the cast did a pretty good job too with their voices, like Chris Pratt. You wouldn't think he'd be the Mario choice, but it worked. Yeah, I had fun with the film. I really like Luigi, how kind of goes into Luigi's haunted mansion type stuff. And I had a good time watching it. I just wish that the story would have been a bit more fleshed out. But I get it. It's a kids movie. At number 21, I got Evil Dead Rise. Now again, this is my weakest movie for me in the Evil Dead series, but it's not a weak movie in itself. I think it does a really good job at switching things up. We get like an apartment complex in here. I just wish we would have got more of the apartment complex. I was picturing that this whole like building was going to get infected and it'd be a crazy, crazy movie, but it's more isolated to like one floor, unfortunately. I feel like they should expand it more with that. But what we do get is still pretty creepy. We get this mom, who's supposed to be protective of her kids, obviously, but she gets infected, so the kids still think that she's lovable for a while, but she definitely does not have good intentions with them. And she does have some great makeup work and everything done. The gore is pretty good. Not quite at the levels of 2013 levels, which I thought was amazing. I really wish they would have went back to that extreme gore style, but it was a little more laid back in that regard. But we still get a ton of blood in here. I think Mary Beth, I think her name is, the main lead. I think she is phenomenal. I think she does an even better job than the mom that's a deadite. Everybody gives her praise, but I love this Mary Beth character. But yeah, I'm just such a huge fan of Evil Dead, so this one still ends up landing in last place for me in that regard, but still a great movie that you should check out. Now, reaching my top 20, at number 20, I'm going with Robots. Now, this is a film I never really heard anything about. I was just going through Amazon Prime one day and I ended up putting it on. I'm pretty sure it was on Amazon. And yeah, this was a pretty fun flick about this world where we have these robots that are identical to us. And these people use them for their work life, right? Which is illegal. They're basically sending their robot off to work to pretend to be them while they're at home doing whatever they want. And that makes for a pretty interesting concept. But what's really funny is you get these two people who manipulate people to, like, they're screwing people over with dating sites and stuff because they're sending out the robots to do the dirty work. But two people who have the same intentions do it to each other. And the funny thing is, the robots fall in love and run away. So the two humans that are very bad people have to actually work together to get their robots back. And it makes for a hilarious journey. There's a lot of funny moments in here. It's very raunchy and rated R at times. The comedy lands for me, and I'm just surprised that this movie doesn't get talked about way more. Like, I had a really good time with it. It does kind of lose its gripping near the end just a tiny bit, but overall, a really good movie. Coming in at number 19, I got The Creator. Now, this is a movie that has a really good concept, really good world building about AI, should it be trusted, should it not? A big topic, especially in the real world. And they do a really decent job. I mean, we've seen types of movie like this before where we get our main lead having to work with a bad guy who happens to be a little girl in this one, and she's not really bad, but she's kind of weaponized. Like she can control the power and all of the world, which is really extreme. So she's very powerful, but she's not necessarily bad. But the humans still don't trust her, right, because of the power she holds. But in the end, it really shows you that the real evil in the world, everything happens because of the humans. The humans make errors, not the AI. And the AI are just trying to survive while the humans are trying to wipe them out. And it makes for a very interesting movie, great world building, great acting and characters. I feel like the story plays a little bit too safe at times. It can be a little bit predictable on how things are going to play out, but it is still incredibly well made. It was a movie I was really anticipating watching. I'm glad I did. I think it could have been a bit better. Coming in at number 18, I got Gran Turismo. Now, I am a huge fan of Gran Turismo 2 on PlayStation 1. Played it a lot as a kid. It had a killer soundtrack. You know, it was one of the racing games I probably played the most in my life. It was really good. So I was really interested to watch this movie. And interesting enough, the movie is part video game adaptation, part based on a true story, and part racing movie. I feel like it does a great job with dealing with all three of those things. Like, it's really incredible. It's kind of hard to believe that something like this actually happened in real life. I actually had to look it up myself, and while it doesn't exactly play out how things played out in real life, most of it does, which is kind of crazy to think, right? A guy who got so good at his video game, at the racing game, that he ended up becoming a racer in real life, which is pretty incredible. The only problem I have with this movie, I felt like it took a while to get going. I was like, this is not as good as I thought it was going to be in the first act. But once it does get going, it did capture my attention, and I did love it from there on out. And the racing scenes are really phenomenal, so definitely one you guys should check out. At number 17, I got the movie Air, another movie that's going to make most people's top 10 lists, and which is crazy, you know, a movie about a shoe, and people love it. It just goes to show how well made it is. And yeah, it did surprise me in that regard. I didn't think I was going to love it. I'm not a fan of Jordan shoes or basketball or anything like that. So all the odds were against me going into this film. But it is very well written, very well acted. We got Ben Affleck, you know, Matt Damon. They all do a fantastic job in here. And yeah, it's about as good of a movie as you're going to get about a shoe. uh, I learned a few things too. I didn't know that basketball shoes had to be mostly white. And, you know, Nike went against the grain and threw in a lot of red in there. And they were willing to pay the fines. But then they got the attention. And yeah, it was just really cool. I liked watching the history behind Nike and the Jordan shoe. But again, it is a movie about a shoe. So it's not personally going to make my top 10 list. It's not something I'm going to be watching all that often. But I do think that they did a good job with what they had. At number 16, I'm going with the movie Thanksgiving. Then one of the newest slashers we got from 2023, an Eli Roth film based off of a trailer he made like back in 2006 or 7, which is crazy that we're getting all these full-length movies from those trailers, those fake trailers back in the day. Like Machete was one of the first, and even to this day now they're still doing them with Thanksgiving. So gotta give them props for that. Everybody was asking for this and we finally got it. And it is a decent slasher. The kills are pretty over the top at times, but they're fun. Pretty good effects. The story is interesting. It's like a whodunit. We're not sure who the killer is. We got this really cool scene at a dinner table involving the killer, and a really kind of gross moment with one of the characters, but it does give you that feel of Thanksgiving, right? Because the first act in this movie, I was like, is this a Thanksgiving movie or a Black Friday movie? Because there's this big Black Friday massacre that happens at the start, and a lot of the plot does surround Black Friday, but as the movie gets going, it does kind of shift more towards Thanksgiving, which I think it happens on the same weekend in the States. I'm Canadian, so I'm not super familiar with that, but yeah, I did enjoy the killer, the look of the killer, his kills, the mystery behind it. And the reveal, I didn't see coming who the actual killer was, so I think all that was great. And the movie does have some pretty intense moments, so I had a pretty good time with this slasher. At number 15, I got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, this one definitely puts the teenage in the Turtles. We never had this kind of childish version of the Turtles before. They're very much in their early teen years or preteens, whatever. And it's kind of cool that we got that because, I mean, the other Turtles movie kind of feels like they're adults pretending to be teenagers or something, but this time you really feel that they're teens with their dialogue and the way they act. So that was great, and it was pretty cool seeing hearing Jackie Chan as Splinter in here. All the mutants in here were pretty cool too. We get a lot of them, a lot more than I expected, which is kind of crazy how they handled this amount of characters. The animation was pretty cool too. And I like the whole final act with the big monster going around town. It kind of reminded me of Ghostbusters a little bit. And I like the way they have to defeat him. And Superfly did a great job as well as a character. I really liked him. So, yeah, a really decent Ninja Turtles movie. I don't know if it's my favorite. I'd have to rewatch them all, which I will do very soon to let you guys know. But it definitely is one of the better TMNT movies. At number 14, I got When Evil Lurks. This movie is a horror movie from Argentina, so it's not in English. I had to read subtitles, but man, it's just a really cool movie that deals with evil, possession, and stuff like that, but does it in a totally different way. Because I am not a fan of like exorcism movies or nothing like that, but this one is very different. There's rules. There's like you can't use guns, and if you screw up these rules, evil could spread like a disease and go through the town and stuff like that. And it was just so interesting learning about this world and how it works, and how kids were really an easy vessel for the evil to go into. And yeah, there's some really intense scenes in here. It's not going to be for everybody. There's a scene involving a dog and a girl, which, a little girl, which is very hard to watch. Is very intense. It definitely feels like a horror movie. And I like how it ended. It was kind of like a bleak ending, but kind of worked for what the story was going for. And yeah, just a really great foreign film. But like I said, this movie's not going to be for everybody. It gets pretty dark at times. And yeah, it was just a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of the Hollywood horror movies. This one definitely crosses the line a few times, and I kind of appreciated that. Coming in at number 13, I got Talk to Me, another great horror movie, this time from Australia. And yeah, just a really cool concept again with this hand that they find. And the hand apparently came from like a clairvoyant or someone who could talk to the dead. So since it's a severed hand from a person like that, they could use the hand to connect with the dead. And again, the rules in that of this world is really interesting. How you can say talk to me and you can see a random ghost. You'll never know what you're going to get or who you're going to get, and you can communicate with them. And when you allow them to let them in, they can like take over your body. But if you allow it to take over for too long, it could corrupt you, and the soul could be trapped in you forever or whatever. And they could take you over. I thought it was just a really cool concept. And our main lead, she happens to go over the time limit, so you're not sure what's going to happen with her because she still has that ghost kind of inside of her manipulating her. And it's just really interesting. We got a really great twist near the end, great performances, pretty freaky, and just a really original film. We need more original horror movies like this. Hollywood, States, North America in general, take notes. At number 12, I'm going with Totally Killer. Another film I think that was an Amazon Prime exclusive or original. But yeah, really fun movie because it takes Back to the Future and a slasher movie and basically combines them into one. And it has kind of that Scream humor, meta-ness about it, like self-awareness. I thought it was really cool. A huge fan of time travel movies, like I said a million times on this channel. So this definitely gave the movie the benefit of the doubt when I was going into it. And I just had a blast watching it. Pretty cool killer look too with the mask. And we get a Gravitron scene in this film, which is really cool. That's a ride that seems to be at like every circus or amusement park or whatever. And yeah, just a fun slasher movie with a great mystery. I like the main lead. I like how she's from present time and she's sent back to the 80s and she gets offended by everything and she can't believe how everything worked back then. It's like people get offended so easy nowadays. And it was real funny to see her like, in a car when someone's smoking cigarettes, you can barely see because there's so much smoke, or the lack of security at the schools and that. And I just found it so funny. And yeah, they just did a really good job with this type of film. Number 11, I'm going with Saw X. A great return to form for the Saw franchise, taking place between the first and second film. And yeah, they did what everybody was asking for. They brought John Kramer back for real this time, Jigsaw. Since this is before he died, and we get him, we get Amanda back, which is really fun, and he's basically the good guy this time. Like, he's an anti-hero. He gets scammed over his cancer treatment in Mexico, and he gets back at them major. I mean, the traps in this film are some of the craziest traps in the entire franchise. Very brutal. Um, there's twists and reveals in here. I didn't see any of them coming. I'm not saying they all landed for me perfectly, but at least they were unpredictable in that sense. I just wish they wouldn't have given away the fact that he got scammed over his cancer treatments. Kind of gave it away in the trailer. I feel like that would have been another cool reveal if they wouldn't have gave that away. But yeah, a really good movie, great performances, cool story, put the franchise back on top, which I loved, and one of the better entries in the franchise easily. Reaching my top 10, we're finally here. These are the great movies of the year. At number 10, I'm going with Sound of Freedom. Now, I'm not going to get into all the controversy surrounding this film, whether it be produced by Kanon or the actor played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, or how experts say this is going to cause people to try to be heroes and it's going to cause more damage than ever. I'm like, it's a movie for one thing. Yes, it's based on a true story. It deals with very dark, real things that happen in the world, which a lot of people don't want to think about, but they're very real. And it's a growing crime thing that's been increasing every year, which is very scary, very sad. It deals with human trafficking of children and the other things that come with that, like the sexual abuse and everything. It's a very hard pill to swallow, but it's definitely something that needs to be, we need to raise more awareness about this. A lot of people don't even realize how much this goes on. I'll admit the first act in this movie was a bit slow for me. I was like, it's all right, but once it picks up near the 45-minute mark or so, it doesn't let up right till the end. I was so invested. I think the our main actor here, I don't know his name, but I think he did a phenomenal job. He was really, like, you really believed him and everything surrounding this film. It's just so good, man. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's very well done and it's very emotional. It's an incredible film, and I just don't get the controversy behind it. At number 9, I'm going with Dark Harvest. Probably the lesser known film up near the top of my list. And I just thought this was such a cool little film about this town that has a creature that comes out of the cornfields every Halloween. And the townspeople, like the kids, have to go and try to stop it, try to kill it. And if they don't succeed, it will basically ruin their town. They'll have a curse on their town, like their crops won't grow and stuff like that. So it's a real juicy concept, but that's just like the outer shell of the film. There's much more going on. And once the movie goes on, the mystery starts to come out. You start to learn what's really going on with this town. And I thought it was just really well made. Yeah, forcing these kids to do this is crazy. Like, you have kids knocking on the door like, Mom, Dad, let me in. They're like, no, you know what you have to do. And it's like they starve these kids for days before this mission just to make sure that they're so hungry that, because if you win, you get like the best life, you get a new car, you get to move away and live the best life possible. So it really motivates these kids. But like I said, there's something much more dark going on in the real story. The only little nitpick I have is, of course, this not being a real high budget movie. It did lack in the effects department, especially with the creature. But I do like his look. And yeah, the whole world building and the concept of this film is really what drew me in, and it's really great. At number 8, I'm going with the Pixar film Elemental. Now, this one was a return to form for me because I was not a fan of the last few Pixar movies. Did not care for Lightyear. Did not care for Onward. I know a lot of people like that one, but it just didn't work for me. This one, okay, it got me again. I love the animation. Most of the animation was standard, but the fire people, since we deal with like water, fire, wind, and earth, the fire people had a really cool style of animation with the way the flames and that were going. I thought that was really clever and something different. The story was heartfelt. I mean, the romance was pretty awesome to watch. I think they did a good job with that. And it just feels like a genuine Pixar movie with a great message, you know. The way that the fire people are seen in the community, has a lot to do with how like minorities are seen when they move to another country and that. So I think they did a good job with that respect, and just overall a really great kids movie. I thought they did a great job. Coming in at number 7, I got John Wick Chapter 4. Uh, this franchise is such a fun one to watch. We got great action, of course. The director, it's been the same director for all these movies, and he is a stunt guy himself. So the stunts are always the highlight of these films, and this one's no different. I love all the new characters introduced in here, like that blind guy with the cane who keeps trying to fight John Wick. We got, I think his name's Mr. Nobody, the guy with his dog, who's like waiting for the bounty to go up higher on John Wick's head before he kills him. So he's kind of like helping them out for a while. And yeah, it's just a really fun movie with a lot of great characters. I love the scene too where they're playing poker. It almost feels like a James Bond moment too. Really high tension moment. I love that scene. And yeah, there's a few times where I'm like, man, this guy can take way too much damage, but I feel like that's the problem with all the John Wick sequels aside from the original. But yeah, they do fix a lot of things that I had problems with part 3. Like part 3, it seems like he forgot his suit was bulletproof and no one was aiming for the head, but in this one he's finally like lifting it up and covering his face and that. So they fix a bit of the flaws I had in the previous film. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the story with this one, and I'm interested on where the franchise is going to go next. At number 6, I have No Hard Feelings. Now, this was such a great raunchy comedy. We don't get these type of comedies anymore. It really feels like this could have came out back in like late 90s, early 2000s with like American Pie and Deuce Bigelow, all those like raunchy comedies we used to have. This fits right in there, and it was just really cool to see that again. Jennifer Lawrence, man, she really blew me away. Her performance in here she's so funny. She's hilarious, and I couldn't believe it because I was never a huge fan of her. Like not a big fan of the Hunger Games movies or anything else I've seen her in, but this really changed my mind on her. Like, wow, I'm a fan now. And there's this really crazy scene involving her that I didn't expect I'd ever see. I never watched a trailer or nothing, never read anything about this movie, so it was a big surprise when you see her on the beach. And if you've seen this movie, you know what I mean. I was on the floor laughing. It was so funny. And it's just a very heartfelt film, with Jennifer Lawrence's character being like this womanizer and that, and her kind of dating this younger kid kind of realizes how bad of a person she really is. He really shows her how to be a better person, and it's just really heartfelt. Just a really feel good movie by the end, and I thought it was just incredibly well done, and it was hilarious, so that's always a bonus for a comedy. Reaching my top 5, I'm going with Renfield. Now, Nicolas Cage, he's been in like 1,000 horror movies the last 10 years, so I didn't really know how to take this one, him playing Dracula this time around, but man, did he do a great job. This is one of my favorite films of him in the last 10 years, easily. It didn't feel like a B movie like the rest of the horror movies he's been doing recently, but I really loved it. It's funny, it's over the top with its gore. It really surprised me in that aspect. Fortunately, they use a bit too much CGI. I would have preferred practical effects, but either way, it's really fun to see this over the top style gore. And Cage, man, he just gives a phenomenal performance as Dracula. He even like sharpened his teeth in real life, like not as bad as in the movie, but enough to fit the fake teeth over just to show his commitment to the role. And yet, I like how it deals with abusive relationships too. I didn't think I was going to get any of that going into here, and it deals with it pretty well. Just a fun movie, man. One I watched multiple times at this point. The only little nitpick is Aquafina. I'm never a fan of that actress. There's something about her that just never works for me, but she's a bit more tolerable in this film. Coming in at number 4, I'm going with Dungeons and Dragons. Another movie that I went in blind with zero expectations, and it completely blew me away with how much fun I had with it. It's just an incredibly fun journey from start to finish. We get some great action. We get great characters. They all stand out on their own. They're all different and unique, and they come together as a great team. Chris Pine, man, he is so hilarious in here. He's kind of like the leader, and he has like zero powers. He just makes the plans. And yeah, he is so funny. He has great charisma in that in here. Michelle Rodriguez is great as always. I always love to see her. Just a great ensemble of actors and characters. A fun journey. It's a world that you don't need to know. Like, you never had to play the board game Dungeons & Dragons or anything, or the RPG to understand what's going on here. But there are a few things in here the for the fans, but it doesn't go to the point where everything's going over your head and you don't know what's going on. No, it's an easy to understand world, a great story, great adventure, and I had a blast watching it. Reaching my top three, at number three, I got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, this is a win for the MCU because James Gunn directed it. Funny enough, now he's like the CEO of DC, but before he left, he made Marvel's last good movie. Easily the best movie at a Phase 5 for me personally in the MCU. It captures the funny moments, the heart, everything that the Guardians of the Galaxy is so great at doing. James Gunn knows how to deliver the comedy and not be cringeworthy. And he pushes the boundaries with what he can do with Marvel, which I appreciate. And I just feel like this was the perfect send off for all of our characters. This would be a perfect way to end this chapter in the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially with James Gunn being gone. I wouldn't want anybody else really to tackle this, even though it wouldn't surprise me if they keep making more of these films and ruin this perfectly good ending. I think the villain is a real standout in here too. He's really villainous. He's really evil. And we get a whole backstory on Rocket, which really fleshes out his character in a great way. We got a killer soundtrack like all these films. And yeah, just one of the better superhero movies in a time where superhero movies are not good at all. Like this one really stands up above the rest. Reaching my top two, I'm going with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Holy shit. One of the only franchises that just keeps getting better and better and better. I'm not necessarily saying that this is my favorite entry or the best entry, but it's definitely one of them. I would have to rewatch them all, which I'm going to do very shortly for you guys. But yeah, ever since Part 3, this franchise has just went into top tier quality. It has phenomenal set locations, set designs, like they're on location. There's great car chases in here, a lot of great action. It's almost 3 hours long, but I never felt the time once. I was completely invested in the story and the characters. It deals with like this AI which went through every military program and everything in the world, so it can feed people false information, which is really interesting, knowing that our main crew in the Mission Impossible crew, how they use a lot of tech and their tech's failing them because of that AI keeps screwing with them. But not just them, the bad guys too, when they're using their tech, the AI can screw with them as well. And yeah, it was just an incredibly fun movie. The stunts are insane. That whole stunt with the dirt bike with Tom Cruise, he is incredible. He may not be the best person in the world. A lot of people don't like him, but as an actor, I can't fault him, man. He is incredible, especially at his age. He's reaching 60 if he's not 60 at this point, and he is just phenomenal. I have to give him credit where credit's due. And I liked all the characters in here. Of course, we got all the returning characters. We got the girl who plays Miss Carter in Captain America. She's in here. She's one of the main characters. I think she does a great job. I don't know her real name, but I really enjoyed watching her. Great addition to the franchise, and just an overall really fun movie that you must watch, and I cannot wait for part 2. I'm so excited. But for me, reaching my number one spot of 2023, I'm going with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Holy shit, this movie is incredible. Well, just goes to show, I never gave a 10 out of 10 to a movie since 2017 with Infinity War. I don't give out 5 stars to nobody, This movie earned 5 stars for me. It's that good. On my first watch too. Usually it takes multiple watches to earn 5 stars. First time I seen this, I was like, wow, I was blown away. The animation is insane. It's out of this world. The way they blended all these different types of animation styles seamlessly. And it's just incredible. It's jaw-dropping watching this. It's like eye candy. It's so visually stunning. The story is incredibly compelling as well. I thought the first Spider-Verse movie was really well done, but this one outbeats it in every way, in my opinion. It focuses more on Gwen at times and really fleshes out her story a lot more. I love that character even more than I did before. Of course, Miles Morales gets a lot of great time in here, and it's just such an incredible movie. The villains are great. And this is only part 1 of 2, just like Mission Impossible. And again, by the end of this, I was just craving to see how things are going to play out. Another 3-hour movie that felt like an hour. It just flew by. So good. The different types of Spider-Man in here are incredibly crazy. We got a lot in the last movie, but this one like triples that. It just keeps going farther with it. The jokes are funny. The animation is insane. The story is incredible. It's everything I wanted from a Spider-Man movie. Probably the best Spider-Man movie ever made, animated or not. And I can't wait for part 2. And this made the best movie of the year for me. And it's going to be incredibly hard to top. Because for me, it's number 1 of 2023. So there you have it, guys. There's my ranking of all 46 movies I've seen from 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Some really great high-quality movies near the top of my list. And some real stinkers near the bottom. But, you know, that's the usual when you do these yearly rankings. Drop your rankings in the comments, or I know you don't want to drop all the movies you've seen, most likely. So at least give me your top 5 and your bottom 5. We'll have a great discussion. Hopefully 2024 brings on even more better movies. I can't wait to find out. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.